Hi, and welcome to a Toast to Truth. This is Season 3, and we are talking about idolizing ideas. This season will be short. In just 4 episodes, I will dive deep into some unflattering, taboo topics, talking about the good, bad, and ugly, and how it affects entrepreneurs. So let's begin with Episode 1. So this is Season 3, Episode 1, Black Women, White Men, Biz Sugar Daddy Relationships. So here's our question for this episode. Who controls the money? So before we get into today's episode, I want to quickly introduce my guest co-host, which is Efabulous, a.k.a. Mommy Fab. So tell everyone hi.
Hi, how are you?
So now, before we get started, we always have to pop some bubbly. Why? Because we have this theme where we like to celebrate for those who are new to the podcast. Okay, so my celebration this week is I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about Season 1, Episode 3, about biz coaches who never played the game, and Season 2, Episode 12, about I'm not angry, I'm ambitious, about the angry black woman myth. So thank you guys for listening and for giving feedback. We probably will do a Part 2 to Season 2, Episode 12, since that's gotten a lot of feedback. So, Efabulous, what are you popping bubbly for this week?
I'm going to pop some bubbly because I made the leap to keep social and political posts on my blog. I felt like there was a point where it was too hardcore for my audience. But because I stayed authentic and true to who I am, I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on those posts that I'm talking about relevant issues that are happening in our society.
That's good because, I have lost so-called friends over this. And I guess I can't even call them friends because if you're a friend, you would respect my opinion and I would respect yours. But anyway, Actually, I'm going to be talking about the election in the next episode, so I'll get into that in the next episode. So we're going to talk about who controls the money, because Efabulous and I were talking, the last couple of weeks about, actually probably the last month, just about getting funding for your business, how we're observing how certain groups, certain associations, certain businesses seem to get the money, and we're sitting here, we're doing everything they're doing. We have, a great brand, great visuals, the organization is being run, our businesses are being run, effectively, so why aren't we getting that money? So let's put it this way, I didn't want to do a whole bunch of stats on, the percentages and all of that. I really wanted us to kind of talk more of how we feel about not getting the funding when we're doing everything in business like white men. Let's just be honest about that. They have no problem walking into a bank and getting money. We go into a bank and they're looking at us like, oh, you own a business? Really? So, Efabulous, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on, especially us black women not getting the funding for our businesses?
I find that it's almost oxymoronic that we as black female Americans are the most educated group in the country, yet when we walk into a bank and ask people to fund our visions and to fund our great ideas, we're met with sometimes disdain, or people actually underestimate our abilities to run businesses. And we are a growing group of entrepreneurs. So it is definitely a huge double standard where you might have a kid in Silicon Valley, white male, with a totally mediocre idea, but you might have a black female with an amazing idea that could probably stand its field on its head. And that person They will doubt her skills. They will doubt her credentials. They will doubt her future success. She could have the most amazing business plan, and she still won't get funded to the level as someone with a mediocre app in Silicon Valley. It's just madness.
I agree. Now, I will be honest. I did get some funding from investors for Fusion Tour in 2012, and it was really more so a pitch competition. And the only reason I won the money was because I can tell them how I was going to spend it. And so we had to do a video, send it in. Everyone else was almost pleading for the money. You know, if they weren't going to get the money, they weren't going to stay in business. That's how they came off. And so with me, I was like, and when we go to this stop, each person will pay X amount for their ticket. It will cost X amount for the venue. It will cost X amount, or I'm going to estimate X amount for advertising in that city. So, you know, so I kind of had an idea of how much money I was going to spend. Now, I got that from Shark Tank. You know, I used to be a heavily huge Shark Tank fan, so I used to pay attention to what they would say was missing in people's pitches, and I made sure that I had that in my pitch. Now, generally speaking, Black women do not get loans from, like, banks. And let's be honest, white men own banks. Now, there was a bank owned by an African-American woman, Maggie L. Walker. It was early 1900s. She was the first woman to open her own bank. It was a savings and loan bank. I can't remember the full name, but it was in Virginia, I believe. But essentially, there aren't many women who own banks. In fact, I did the research. There are only 2 banks owned by women as of 2016 in this entire country.
Wow.
So, yes, they can't go and give loans to everybody, you know. They don't have the capital. Now, here are some stats for people who are like, oh, y'all just give me your opinion. There are more than 9.1 million businesses owned by women. Women-owned businesses generate $1.4 trillion in sales. Businesses owned by women employ 7.9 million people. 2.9 million firms or businesses are owned by women of color. Companies owned by women of color employ 1.4 million people, and businesses led by women of color generate $226 billion in revenue annually. So if you want stats, there are your stats. Now let's talk about all women-owned businesses have $1.4 trillion in sales, and yet the percentage of us getting funding from investors or loans from banks is like a really depressing and sad stat. I'm just trying to figure out if men are still in that mindset of women shouldn't run a business, or they think women don't know how to manage that money. What do you think?
I think it is a combination of both. I think that we still have this glass ceiling over us, which is tied into a patriarchal financial system that says, you know, a woman is inferior to you when it comes to running a business, which we know is not true.
Because women actually generate more money than men. The Shark Tank businesses, at least when they've done the studies, the women businesses who got the investment are outperforming the men businesses who got investment.
And see, that's totally great. But in real life, when you walk in there with your business plan and your projections and your forecasting, they almost don't believe that you did the work. This is your vision, and this is your mindset. And so do you stress yourself out and try to get validation from someone who really doesn't want to validate your intelligence, or do you kind of go it alone? And many of us go it alone.
And that's where we start getting frustrated, because you're doing everything, and then some women, not me, but some women have children. They may have a spouse. They, have family responsibility on top of being chief everything officer Okay, even though everybody's running around, I'm boss chick, I'm CEO, all this stuff, in the beginning, you are chief everything officer. Let's be real. You don't have the money. You don't have the money to be outsourcing a lot of things. Now, you can. There have been times where I've outsourced a lot of my graphic work because that's not my forte. And I paid the price, because the graphic designers I went with were not cheap. However, it did free me up, but then I had to think, I really got to make that money back because that was not in my budget. However, I needed the time to do other things, so I made the financial sacrifice. Now, here, for a lot of you who are new to A Toast to Truth, we talk about the mental, emotional, and financial frustrations of running a business. Now, when you are not getting the cash you need to kind of help push your business over to, the next level, it can be very, very emotional. It can be very, very financially draining. And then that leads to a lot of, depression because you're thinking you're not good enough. Your idea is not worth as much as you think it is. It probably is worth a lot. However, the system does not allow us to actively participate on all forms of being in business. Like I read this article about Chip Gaines. So everybody knows Chip and Joanna Gaines in Waco. They have the show on HGTV, Magnolia Homes is their business. And he said that when he was in college, he got $5,000 from the bank to start this business. Okay? He said he was so intrigued with being able to borrow money that he would try to borrow as much money as he could. Now, he always paid it back, but he said it was just the thrill and the idea of, I can go borrow money and then I can do the things I need to in my business. But guess what? Chip Gaines is a white man, and he's been getting loans from banks since he was in college. Us as women, and particularly women of color, we can't go into a bank and get that, as easily. And there are only, I believe, like 21 black-owned banks, and they don't even have the capital to do as many small business loans as need be in a community. So, so we know we have about 21 African-American owned banks. We have 2 women-owned banks. I think it's 46 Hispanic-owned banks, and I can't remember the Asian-owned banks. But essentially, it's still not more than 150 banks for women and minorities in this country when it comes to owning banks, owning the capital in there. So I'm going to let Efabulous kind of say something right before we go to our commercial, and then we'll come back. But, what are your thoughts? Because you run a business as well, Efabulous, and you're actually in the financial,
Yeah, so on top of being a mom, because that's like my main job, and working a 9 to 5, I actually have 3 businesses, but 2 have been up and running since my daughter was a small baby. And when I started my businesses, I knew I could not be funded. I knew that I didn't want to go into a bank. I didn't want to have someone throw me under the bus. My stress level was just too high, and I had a toddler. So I had to come up with the entire infrastructure of 2 web-based businesses where I could survive on the most basic budget and reinvest any profits back into the budget to be self-sustaining. That is a hard can to carry.
It is, and that's what a lot of women seem to do, or have to do. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. It's very hard because you realize that you have this great idea, and you know that if you walk into a bank and present this to someone, that the first thing they're going to do is they're going to marginalize your intellectual ability. So you won't be able to even sit at the negotiation table in a good emotional state because you're filled with anxiety. Your back is already up because you know what you expect to encounter as a minority-owned business, and especially as a woman walking into a predominantly white-owned institution. And it is really mentally, emotionally, and sometimes it's physically taxing, because you see your vision, you want to support your family, you want to do the work that you're so passionate about, but you know that if your white male counterpart would get funding and you wouldn't.
It's almost like code switching. And I know there was a hashtag code switching. That's not what we're talking about. But it's almost as if you have to speak in a different language. And be honest, we have to speak the language of business. And a lot of us do not know how to fluently speak the language of business. And that in and of itself is a hindrance. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be right back. I'm now accepting clients for my mental detox strategy sessions. I specialize in teaching overwhelmed entrepreneurs and professionals who give too much to others and nothing to themselves how to incorporate daily mental breaks into their schedule. If you know anyone who needs help in this area, please send them to my blog, VernettaRFerney.com/truthconfidant. Thanks for the support. Okay, so we are back, and that commercial it fits perfectly for this. Exactly what Efabulous said right before the break about it being taxing to go into those institutions, knowing that you have a very slim chance of getting the funding. Now, here's something interesting that I'm sure a lot of people aren't even familiar with. Did you guys know that November is National Entrepreneurship Month? I didn't know that until, this year when I was doing research. So, essentially, President Obama, November 17th, I think that's the day, it's National Entrepreneurship Day is November 17th, and the whole month is celebrating National Entrepreneurship Month. So I found that me wanting to talk about this particular topic fit perfectly with the theme of this month, because it seems like the White House is pushing for more small business innovation. However, the push for innovation is there. The funding for that innovation is not. So I was on Twitter, and I was, watching the debates, and I was tweeting. None of the debates ever addressed small businesses. They never addressed if they would provide more loans, if they would provide more financial help to get small businesses up and running or to grow. And so one person tweeted me and said, that's not their responsibility, that's ours. What's your take on that? I have my opinions, but Efabulous is like I am. We both have very strong opinions. That's why we're How to Get Away with Murder, strong cold watchers, Yeah. Live tweeting every Thursday. But what's your take on the comment of it's not their responsibility to provide the loans?
Oh, I think that's foolishness. It is definitely the government's responsibility to help small businesses thrive, because we're the bottom, we're the ground soldiers of the economy. Not only small business owners, we are trying to make other opportunities for young people, for women. So we're trying to employ people. We're trying to contribute to the gross national product. There's no way that someone can say that this is not their responsibility. It's totally their responsibility, because they have to be responsible for the entire economy, not just the portion that makes their platform sound good.
That is very true.
Yeah, I think that we are the foot soldiers of the economy, and if you don't take care of us, then who are you taking care of?
Right, and for me, I think a lot of, like you said, we're the foot soldiers. There would be less unemployment if more small businesses got a little bit more help. And we're not asking you to hand us money, to give us money. We're asking for loans. We would pay it back. Or we're asking for more pitch competitions, or, just an opportunity to get that I got $2,000. I did an entire 5-city national tour on $2,000. Okay,
that's amazing.
So we're very frugal. You know, you can be very frugal with the amount of money. You just need an extra amount of money.
Right.
I can't. I cannot remember the name of the college. I just read it yesterday, where they give $100,000 in their elevator pitch competition. $100,000, but it's for MBA students. Okay. I used to have this program that I sold for seed grants, and it had a list of over 100 seed grant competitions, pitch competitions, where you can get money that you didn't have to pay back. The problem with those competitions, they don't advertise as well as they should. And
right.
What happens is because they do not advertise, they start taking the program away. So that's less money out there for small businesses, for entrepreneurs, for minorities to get. Now, here's the thing. They should have advertised. They should have told people that there's money here, enter this competition. On the flip side, we as entrepreneurs have to do more due diligence, have to do more research to find the money. We can't just wait till Chase does their annual,
right?
You know, or Wells Fargo does their annual. There are a lot more than Chase and Wells Fargo who gives money. Right now, UPS partnered with Marcus Lemonis from The Profit, and they're doing, it's called the elevator pitch. It's really cool. It's on YouTube. You can just type it in, Marcus Lemonis, UPS, the elevator pitch. And it's 3 businesses each episode, and they start at the first floor. They go all the way up to the top floor, and during the time on the elevator, they have to pitch their business to Marcus Lemonis. And then he decides, of those 3, who UPS is going to write a check for $10,000 to. So that's new. That's just brand new within the last month as far as an opportunity to get some money for your business. I think most of the businesses, though, are around the Chicagoland area. So if you are in, so if you are in the Chicagoland area, then you may want to try to apply for that. But I can't remember, in season 2 episode, I think it's 6 or 7, I gave like a long list of different places you can find money. So I'm trying to help you guys. I'm really, really trying to help you guys get paid, find money, because I know it took me 2 years of doing diligent research every single week to have the knowledge that I do when it comes to where can I find free money, where can I locate money, how can I get my business to have the money to grow so I can accommodate more clients, accommodate more customers. But this episode will be a little short because we didn't want to overwhelm you. But before we get to our final toast, which is our takeaway for those who are new, and I'm only repeating this for episode 1 because I've gotten a lot of new listeners since season 2. But Efabulous, is there anything that you want to add to the discussion before we both give our final takeaway?
Okay. So the one thing I want to add to this dialogue is that if you are a Black woman entrepreneur listening to this podcast, do not give up. Even though it's discouraging to know that the playing field is so not level, it might be on a 90-degree angle. Please don't give up, because you have a vision, you have a spark, and if you keep at it, and if you do the groundwork, excellence is always recognized by some type of phenomenon. And I have been in business now. My resume writing business has been thriving since 2007, and my social media business is starting to take up steam. I've not had any formal funding, but I keep at it because I'm passionate about it. So if you have a passion, just please keep at it. Don't get discouraged. And like Bernetta said, do more due diligence. Add that to your chief everything duty. Do more due diligence. Make the time, and it can help you because you might have that pitch. So that's what I want to add to the conversation. Don't give up.
I want to add one thing before we get to the final toast. When Efabulous said, if you're passionate about something, don't give up, I also want to add, get the skills necessary to make sure that your passion can become profitable. Because while, there are a lot of people who are talking about purpose and passion, and, that's good. I'm not going to dismiss them. But a lot of people lack the skill necessary to make that passionate project of theirs something relevant. Currently I'm going back through all of my old trainings, all of my old ebooks. I'm taking notes. I'm dissecting my entire business model. My business is changing from business development to teaching people how to mentally detox so that they can increase their productivity. So my whole business model is changing. And what am I doing? Studying every single day, going through something every single day. So if you follow me and you see me putting questions out every day, it's because I'm needing to make sure that I deliver exactly what people want. Not what I think they want, but what they want. And in order to do that, I need to get a feel of the pulse, of the frustration level, of the stress level that people are dealing with. So we're going to wrap that up, and we're going to go to our final toast. Okay, so my final toast in today's episode is, I like what Efabulous said about, doing it with excellence. We can have our business, we can be passionate, but you want to make sure that you do it with excellence. Even when you feel no one is following you online, even when you feel no one is paying attention to you, trust me, they are. I had someone comment on my Facebook post. She was like, I've never purchased from you, but you inspire me. Your posts are very enlightened, educational. You provide a lot of resources. This lady has never really interacted with me, but to say that, I'm like, okay, exactly what Efabulous said about doing it with excellence. So no matter if I feel no one is paying attention, people are paying attention. People are looking. They just may not be buying from you yet. I'll say that. Okay, so Efabulous, what's your final toast?
My final toast, I'm kind of piggybacking on that, is when you set out to do business, not only make sure that you set out to have excellent standards, but remember, presentation is everything. Don't always follow the crowd. Don't always follow the common man. In order to set the bar of excellence, you have to be exceptional. Definitely do your due diligence, follow your own plan, and make sure you offer something that solves a problem. Problem-solving apps, websites, businesses, they are what's in and what's happening now and what's trending, because a lot of people don't have the time to solve their own problems, and they're looking for subject matter experts to help them whiz through daily life. So if you're going to start a business, you're out there, you're fired up, you're passionate, make sure you have your proper credentials, and then make sure you offer a solution and that solution is exceptional. You'll win.
I like that your solution is exceptional. Well, this has been a Toast to Truth with Bernetta R. Freeney. That's me, chatting it up with my blogging and TV watching friend, Efabulous, about who controls the money and the consequences, that happens when we don't have the money. So thank you for listening to Season 3, Episode 1.